Hey everyone, welcome to Scrappy Moms September Release and also day one of my Halloween fall mini series. Today I'm using the Love at First Bites by Scrappy Mom stamps. Their brand new stamp set. It is perfect for Halloween. You need to head over to their blog and pick yourself up this set. I'm also using the Greeting Farm Hello Witch Digi stamp. And I'm cutting her out using my Spellbinder circle die with my Cuttlebug here. And then you're going to see me coloring her with Copics, and I apologize in advance for the difference in lighting all of a sudden. It appeared to be a cloudy day here in Florida when I was recording this, and it just got super dark and then super light, and then I realized how dark it was, and then I turned the light on. So I apologize in advance. So I am testing out a new camera, so you'll see me focusing on the colors and then unfocusing, and it became a hot mess. But anyways, so the colors that I'm using, as you saw, are E000, E00, and E21 for the skin, and I go from lightest to darkest. And I'm just creating this shadowing effect with the E00 as well as the E21. And I'll warn you in advance, I am no Copic certified, excuse me, I'm not Copic certified, and I'm not a professional in coloring with Copics. I'm still learning all the time. And you'll see I'm not happy with the way her hair turned out, but I mean, you just go with it. And then I added in for the cheeks R20, and then I took my E000 and diffused that color a little bit because it was a little too bright for my liking. And then I'm moving into her hair, and as you can see, I'm using E35, E37, E39, and then E29. And again, I'm starting from lightest to darkest and then working my way back down to the lightest color. This is the first time I've ever colored this image, and I have a really tough time trying to follow the waviness of her hair, so to speak. And so you'll see me get frustrated here on the right, and I just start coloring the whole thing, and then I'll go back in with the darker colors to kind of create the shadowing effect. And I like to do the hair and other sections in pieces. I don't like to do the whole thing at once because I like to make sure that the color can blend. And you'll see I left her pigtail bottoms undone because I'm going to go back and do those in a little bit. So now you'll see I'll go in with the E29, and I'm just creating that really, the darkest color. I'm creating more definition and shading under the brim of the hat. And then I'm using YG05 and YG06 to color the band on her hat. And then I'll actually pull in a third color because I felt like the shading wasn't enough. And I'll go ahead and pull in G05. And you'll see here now I have my light on because I realized just how dark it was getting out. And I'm just using the lines that are already drawn for me as a guideline as to where the creasing would be for this band on the hat. And then I'm going back in with the YG05 and the YG06 to kind of blend it out a little bit. Then for the pumpkin on her hat, I'm using YR04 And then going over it to add a little bit of shading with the YR07. I'm not quite sure why I went, so intently on shading, because I am going to go over this later on with some stickles, but hey, it is what it is. And then I'm going over the stem of the pumpkin as well as the handle to the broom with E37, and I'm not doing any shading at all with that. I'm just leaving it as is. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to her hat. Now I want her hat to look like it's black, but I don't want to use black only because then there'll be no shading or shadowing effect. So I'm going with the neutral grays. I'm using N3 first, and I'm just putting a little bit of color down, giving myself a guideline as to where I want the shadowing and shading to be. And then I'm going in with the N5 and just going over those areas, and then you'll see me go over those areas again with the N7, and that is my darkest color. And then I'm going back in reverse. I'm going back with the N5 and blending that out a little bit. And then I'll go back in with the N3 and completely color the rest of the hat and blend out any harsh lines from the N5 or the N7. I was actually pretty happy with how her hair turned out. And then I'm going to move on to her boots. I'm using the same exact colors, the same exact idea of just shading it and then going back in reverse. So N3, N5, N7, and then going back with the N5 and blending it totally out with the N3. For her broom, I decided that I was going to use, I'm sorry, it's not focusing. Again, brand new camera that I'm using, not totally happy with it, but it is what it is. I'm using the Y15 and the Y17, and then you'll see me go back in. I wasn't completely happy with how it looked. It looked too clean, so to speak. I wanted it to look a little bit more grungy. And so you'll see me go in with the E35 that I already had pulled out from her hair, and I'm just adding a little bit of, straw look to it, and then I'm going back in and blending out with the Y15 so that it wasn't as stark. And then I felt that her eyes really needed to pop, and I wanted to keep it in color with everything else I had going on. So of course I made it green, and I'm using the YG05, and I'm literally just going around the pupil of her eye to make it really pop. For her dress, I decided I wanted to do purple. I'm keeping with the pattern paper that I'm using. So the purples that I'm using are BV00, BV02, and then BV04. And I'm trying to learn how to color in pleating. It's not working out so well. I'm still watching a whole bunch of videos and trying to really grasp how to do it correctly. So you'll see me here. I keep going back in with a whole bunch of color. The 3 colors that I'm using, I just keep layering on color, hoping that'll look it, and I just never get that effect that I'm really happy with. So I end up going over her whole dress towards the end with some stickles, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted her to look like she had a sparkly dress on. But I just wasn't happy with the shading, so you'll see me going back and forth with it and trying to make it appear as though I would like, but it doesn't quite work out in my favor. And then for the very edge of her sleeves, and then for the little part peeking out from under her dress, I wanted to go with my greens again just to tie it all together. And I'm just using the YG05 and YG06 to do a little bit of shading. And then there you'll see the finished image. I really like how her eyes just stand out completely. So the pattern paper that I'm using for this card is the Halloween by K & Company, and it's done by Tim Coffey. This is actually a really old paper pad. It's been in my collection for a couple years now. I want to say at least 2, if not 3 years. So you'll see that I'm using the spotted paper, and that's going to be my primary background. And then that candy paper, the background green color, is perfect for what I was looking for. So I'm using that. And I'm just using my Spellbinder's Scalloped Circle. And I'm just placing it on there. I'm not taping it down with washi tape because it's a solid color. I'm not worried about if the dye shifts or anything. So I'm just laying it on there, cutting it out. And that'll be the background for the digi image that is cut out. And the whole time that I was recording this is when I was putting the card together. I couldn't really figure out a layout ahead of time. I knew I wanted to use a circle around, or I wanted to cut out the witch with a circle and then use a scallop circle. So you see that I'm using the paper tray ink Perfect Plum cards. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it's called. It is the plum colored cardstock. I'm sorry that I don't have the exact name in front of me. But it's a gorgeous shade of purple. It matches perfectly with this pattern paper. Then I'm just using my Martha Stewart scoreboard as well as my Stampin' Up scoring tool, creasing tool. It's one of my favorites. And then just using the bowl and folder. I love PTI paper as my card base. It's really sturdy. I feel like it's affordable for the quality that you're getting, and it's just perfect. And I have to give credit to Sarah, or my dear friend Sarah, who's a paper crafter here on YouTube, and I'll put her name down below, her YouTube name. She's the one who really got me hooked on PTI for card bases. It's just great. So now you're seeing that I'm using the Scrappy Mom Stamps twine. This is their Halloween twine, which is a must-have in your collection for any Halloween projects. And I'll go ahead and put a link to their store down below so that you can order yourself this Love at First Bite stamp set. And if you need to get any other products from them, you can go on ahead. Then I'm just using the baker's twine to wrap it around my card and make a bow. And I have this thing with twine that I need to wrap it around 3 times. I don't know why. It's just something I have to do. So you see me here, I'm just adjusting the bow and making it down to the size that I want. And then I realized I needed to space out my card for my sentiment, excuse me. So I'm just using Pop Dot adhesive. These are from Stampin' Up. They are my favorite to use. They're not too thick, they're not too thin. So I'm attaching the digi image, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm using, sorry, I lost my place. I'm using the Stop by 4 Spell stamp set, or stamp from the collection, the new stamp set. And I'm inking that up with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm using just another piece of pattern paper from the same pack because it just all ties in, and I felt like the blues and purples on this piece of pattern paper really matched with her dress. So I thought I'd go ahead and use that, and I'm just trimming it down to size. And then I went fishing in my punches drawer, and I decided I wanted to use the Stampin' Up. I believe this is called the Modern Label Punch. And this is one of my absolute go-to punches for sentiments. I love it. And so since the sentiment was a little bit, I wanted to keep it smaller. I didn't want to make it huge. I just went ahead and used the edges of the punch to make a little bit of a design. Just cutting off my twine, I'm going ahead and put pop dots on the back of my sentiment, applying that. And then you'll see me looking here, and I realize that I'm not happy with how her dress looks. So I pull out my stickles collection. Yes, I'm a little bit of a stickles hoarder. I'm sorry. I just went out on a whim one day and went ahead and got it. So I'm pulling out the paprika and then also the lavender. These match perfectly with the pumpkin as well as her dress. And I also pulled out the lime green, and you'll see me applying it, and then I scrape it off with my bone folder because it just is not a match for this green, and I was just not happy with it at all. So I'll go ahead and scrape that off and clean it up. It did leave a little bit of what looked like gold flecks on her hat, which I was okay with. I wasn't super upset about. But then I go ahead and I switch over to the stickles and paprika, and then I'm just going over the pumpkin. And I really like the effect that it gives it. And then at the end of the video, it looks like it got cut off, but I'm going to go ahead and use the stickles in lavender, and I'm just going over her whole dress and as well as the little dots in the sentiment. And you'll see that at the very end. I show you a close-up of the card. So here it is, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this day 1 of the Scrappy Moms September release, as well as day 1 of the Halloween Fall series. Check back soon for the next video.